All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over CSS background image placement. How do you put a background image where you want it to go? There's a lot of ways to do that. You probably have seen background images already in some other videos and things. We're also going to I wanted to make sure that I talked about the shorthand property too. So most of these examples don't use the shorthand property because I wanted you to see the separate background image properties. But there is a shorthand background property, and it looks like this. So it just looks like background. Let me zoom in here. Looks like background, and then you can have the color, the image, the repeat, which we're going to do today, the attachment, and the positioning, and more, right? So they can be, you can emit any value, but they kind of need to stay in that order. And then you can use a slash for positioning too, which I think we're going to do in an example later. I should have given you the starter file, hopefully, if I'm nice, which I usually am. So usually very nice. And then there's a background image in there. We have to have a background image to do something about background images, right? So this is an image that's exactly 100 pixels by 100 pixels. It's kind of like an alien cell. I don't know. I made it up. So that's it. So I'm going to hide this sidebar to give us some more space. A couple other things about this before we start. There is a style in here, if I can find it, for here it is. So for each box has a class of each of these cards. These are called cards, right? Or boxes. Each has a class, I think they all have it, called bg-box. And that's where the background image is applied. So to apply a background image, if you didn't know this already, is just background-image and then the location of the image. So that's that. Or else we wouldn't have any background images to look at. The rest of this is a lot of formatting stuff, mobile styles. So I'm going to go down to about like line 191. And we're going to start positioning these different sorry, I paused there and coughed a little bit. I am a little bit sick, so I might cough or snort or something. I think you guys are safe, though. Sorry again. All right, so we're going to start positioning here. So one way to do it is by pixels. So by the way, I've kind of got these out of order a little bit. So we're talking about repeat down here. How does the image repeat? Does it not repeat, or does it repeat left or right, or not repeat at all? So all these have no repeat. That's why we're seeing one image only. Normally, by default, a background image repeats, meaning it fills up or tiles and fills up the whole page like this, right? But I have no repeat on here already on these positioning ones. So that's why there's only one. So probably should have rearranged those, but that's hindsight. Okay, so, and also the last thing is, so you shouldn't have to touch any of this HTML down here. This is all kind of done. It's got the BG box on there, and then it's got another style on there that we're editing. So we're just going to really edit just one line or maybe a few lines a couple times of CSS. All right, that's enough of that. All right, so positioning by pixels. So we're going to say background-position. And then we're going to say 20 px and a space, and then 20 px. So what that does is it positions the left edge of the image 20 pixels from the left edge of the container, and the top edge of the image 20 pixels from the top of the container. So that's 2020, right? So if I go, if I change this to 2040, where's it going to go? It's going to go 20 pixels from the left edge and 40 down from the top. So that's how that works. Using pixels to position stuff. The next one is you can use keywords. So we're going to say, I'm just going to copy these two and save a little bit of time. Be careful when you copy, right? I always say this, because if you had a mistake here, which I don't think I do, and I copy it and I paste it here, then I'd have the mistake again, right? So I'm going to say center and center. So now the image is centered. Not only is it centered, it's not centered from an edge either. It's centered from the center of the image is centered in the background and the center vertically and horizontally. So it's kind of taking this spot right here in the middle of that image, centered in the image, and putting it in the center of the background. So that's how you can put a background right in the center, right? Also, there is a little bit of a shortcut there you could put. If I just put center, it's the same as saying center, center. So it just repeats itself. But we'll put both just to make sure you guys are getting that. The next one we'll do is right and bottom. So this is a little bit, shows you how it positions from different edges. So if I put right and bottom, then the right edge of the image is positioned to the right edge of the container, and the bottom of the image is on the bottom of the container. So that's how you can get it to the bottom right corner, actually. So that's kind of a common thing, like you want something in the corner. You can say background position, left, center, or right, top, center, or bottom. Those are the options, by the way. I don't know if it says that anywhere. Oh yeah, it does right here. Top, right, bottom, left, and center. So that is right bottom. And then the last one is percentages. This one's a little even more strange. So I'm gonna say 75% and then a space and then 25%. Yeah. So what does that mean? That means if we look at this, it's going to be 75% over in the image. So about right there. And 25% down in the image, about right there, is going to be 75% over in horizontally and 75% down vertically, or 25%, yeah, 75% over horizontally and 25% vertically. So this part of the image is also that far over in the background, if that makes sense. So this 75, 25 here, about right there, is 75% of the way across here and 25% down. I think I forgot to mention too that you could do negative. So let's see. Yeah. So if I do negative, the first number too is the horizontal. I forgot to mention that as well. The first number is the X, so the horizontal. The second position is the Y, the vertical. And on web and other media, other things, right? X is usually horizontal, Y is vertical, and Z is depth. We can't see any depth on this page because it's a two-dimensional thing, unless you're looking at this in the future in a hologram or something, but it's two-dimensional. So if I say 75%, negative 25%, it goes actually outside of the container because it's a negative number. So positive numbers, I'm going to go negative 75. Ooh, it disappeared, sorry. I won't do that. Positive numbers go right and down, negative numbers go left and up. So since I said negative 25, it went up. Right? So yeah, so positive numbers on the x-axis go right, positive numbers on the y-axis go down, negative numbers go left and up. So don't forget that too, that's important. All right, so that is the positioning, and there's some other fancier ways to do it, but we're not going to get into that just to save a little bit of time here. But yeah, so hopefully that helps with that. Next, we're going to get into repeat, which I said we should have started with, but we didn't. So repeat both. I'm going to say background repeat and repeat, which is the default. So nothing changes. That's this one right here, right? So if we say background repeat, repeat, it just does what it normally does, which is repeat. If I comment that out, nothing happens because that is the default. So whenever you put a background image in something, by default, it's going to tile or repeat and just fill up the entire size of the container. It doesn't matter how big or small the container gets. So that's the default. That's why it didn't change, because it's the default. The next one is, we're going to say background repeat. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say background repeat, repeat dash X. And what does that mean? So remember the X direction is horizontal, right? So now it's repeating only horizontally. Cool. So you can make like a row, right? The next one is repeat Y. You can probably figure this one out. If I say repeat dash Y, Y is vertical. So now we've got a column, right? So if you want to have background image repeat just vertically, you just say repeat Y and it goes vertically. If you say background repeat, no repeat, which is what we had already in the previous one. You already saw this, but we'll do it again. Then it doesn't repeat at all. So the default is it's going to repeat. You could say no repeat, it doesn't repeat at all. Repeat X horizontal, repeat Y vertical. Okay. Sorry about that. The next one is background size. So how do you size the background? You can scale it, which is pretty cool. So the first one we're gonna do is background size contains. So I'm gonna go to line 235. I'm gonna say background size contain. That's this one. So what contain does is it scales the background image so that it fits inside the container, but it doesn't go outside of it. So you can have empty space, right? So here's some empty space there, but it fills up the container. Notice also that it got bigger than it actually is. This is the actual size, I think, 100 by 100. So it's bigger, right? Because it's filling up. So it could lose quality is what I'm trying to get at. Because when you scale something up, a browser scales it up, it's not going to be the best quality probably. It's not like Photoshop. Photoshop does too. Everything loses quality a little bit when you scale it up, usually. So just be careful with that. You don't want to take a really small image and scale it up really big because it'll look blurry and bad. All right, the next one is cover. So I'm going to say background size cover. So what cover does is just like it sounds, it covers the entire background. So, but that means that the image can leak out the sides. So the top and the bottom of this image are not visible because it blew it up even bigger. And so it can cover the entire background. That's what cover means, right? So here it's contained, here it's covering. All right. You can also do, you can size it using pixels. So I'm gonna say background size 50 px space 50 px. That's the horizontal size and the vertical size. So there's 50, 50. So now we're scaling it down. Usually you don't scale things down, but you can. If I say 50, 100 here too, it will distort, right? So you can distort an image this way. You usually don't want to do that because it's distorted, right? So I mean, it's possible you might want to do that, but not very often, right? If I just put 50 again, it's just going to repeat the number for X and Y. So it's the same as saying 50, 50, but we'll put in 50, 50 so we can make sure we see that well. Sorry. Try to keep it down at 2 more coughs. All right, the next one is percent. So this one gets a little bit funky too. So I'm going to say background size, and we're going to say 60% space, and then auto. So what does that mean? That means that the background size is 60% of the width of the container. The container is the blue box, right? And then auto means it keeps the same aspect ratio. So aspect ratio is the ratio of the width to the height, basically the shape. So it was a square, so it stays a square, right? If I reverse this, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to reverse it. So now the horizontal is auto and the vertical is 60%. So this now is 60% of the height of this. The image is 60% of the height of this. And then the horizontal is auto, so it stays the same shape. We're going to do that though. There is a space in there. So that's percentages. So that one will scale, right? This one will not. That one will. See how this one is scaling? I can't show you while I do that. There you go. And that one's scaling too. And this one would scale too. Okay. So that is sizing. Next, we're going to do multiple background images. So I'm going to paste this in because it's kind of a lot. And I don't want to have you guys watch me type for 3 minutes. Kind of boring. So I will, you can pause here and type this. Let me make it so you guys can see it. I just got mangled here as far as where it goes. Here it is. So we've got background image. This is for multiple backgrounds. So the way this works is just like it does normally for all these properties, but you put a comma. So if I have two background images, I put the first background image and then a comma and then the second background image. They don't have to be the same image, obviously, but I only have one image, so there's one background image in there. There's a comma. And then for background repeat, I've got no repeat, comma, no repeat. That's the first image, that's the second image. Background position is 15, 15, that's this one. 15 pixels down and 15 pixels over. And then this one is right bottom, so that one's that one. So you put a comma, and then this first image, that's the second image. And the background size is 60, 60, 60 by 60 on the first one, 80 by 80 on the second one. So you can put as many as you want. You could put 30 in there if you're crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of cool, right? So you definitely can have, and you didn't used to be able to do that. You used to do some weird tricks to do that, but pretty easy now. I'm going to paste in one more time to show you how you could do this with because it is a little funky with the background shorthand. So I'm going to paste this in so you can see, so I don't have to type it in front of you guys. This is how you do it with the shorthand. Remember we said shorthand looks like this. You have the color and then the image and then the repeat and then the attachment and positioning. You can leave some of these out, but they're kind of going that order. So here's the first, so you just put background instead of image, repeat, position, and size. And then here's your image. Here's your size. Here, or this is positioning. Here's the size. So there's a slash there. And then that's the repeat. Here's the second image, which is the same as the first. The positioning, the size, and the repeat. So you just put a comma. Make sure you have that comma right there. This is not going to work. That guy right there. That guy. Okay, so that's how you do that one. I'll leave that one up for a second. You can pause and type that out. I could comment this out. I probably would. I'll do that. You guys can do it too. Remember, command / or control / to comment. Because this is the same as this. I mean, it's the same thing. All right, so next is attachment. How do you attach? We don't want to get into that. That's personal. Okay, so where is attachment? I lost it. Here we go. Background attachment. Oh, you know what I just noticed, which we should fix? We want to fix the background color. I don't think there's a background color on this. There is one for this container here, but maybe you want a background color here. Why do you want a background color on containers if you're using a background image? Because that's the color that users will see before they see the background image when it downloads, right? So if it takes any amount of time to download, you want them to see a color that kind of matches. So this image is kind of white with these red patterns, so I'm just going to make it white. And the way you do that is on the last layer, it has to be on the last layer, which sometimes I mess up on. I'm going to add pound FFF, which is the shorthand for white. And then there's the last, that's on the last layer, right, or the last background image. And now it has a white background. So that would show up before those background images download, even though it probably will not show up. I mean, it will show up anyway, but it'll also show up wherever the background image is not, right? So I should have put that in earlier. All right, moving on. So now we're in attachment example. So how is the attachment? That is a little bit personal, but we're going to do that anyway. So we're going to go to attach fix, and we're going to say background attachment. And I spelled it wrong, so it didn't pop up. Background, attachment, and fixed. And we're on about line 273. So what does that do? We're down here. So you just saw it. This is crazy, right? So what happens is when you say background attachment fixed, the background is fixed or doesn't move relative to the browser window, which is kind of crazy, or relative to the viewport actually. So what it means is it doesn't scroll with the page. So if I do this, right, you can see that there's the background image, but the box that it's in, which is this one, scrolls kind of right over the top of it. It's really weird. You've probably seen this before and didn't really notice or know how it's done, but that's how you do that, right? So you can put a background image in that won't scroll when the user scrolls. So it's only visible wherever this box is, because that's the one it's in. But so it kind of goes off and on, right? I think it's kind of interesting. It's useful sometimes. So that's background attachment fixed. The other one I'm copying and pasting is scroll, which is the default. So here's the difference, right? This one is normal. It would just scrolls with the box, just like normal. So the background image scrolls. Here it does not. So that is background attachment. Background origin. So where it's not like a Wolverine origin story or anything. It's where does the background or background image start from? Does it start from all the way out here or somewhere in the where the content is? Does it start where the content or the padding or the margin is, or the border is? If I inspect here, remember you've seen this a lot of times, I think probably, but here's the CSS box model. So you have content, and then you have padding, and then you have border, and then you got margin. So that's the content, padding, border, margin. All are optional, right? I've said that a few times, I think. But you want to say where do we want this background image to start? So let's do. We're going on to the one that says origin border, and it's background dash origin. And we're going to say border box. So what does that mean? So now if you look, so this border is really thick, so you can kind of see through it. We're seeing through this border. It's a super thick dashed border. So if we say start at the border box, it starts at the outside edge of the border. That's why the border is so thick, so we can see that. So that is the origin is border box, and it goes out to the very outside edge of the border and starts there. So we're actually seeing through it. It's pretty nitpicky, but it's kind of interesting. Then you can also say padding box, which you can probably figure out starts where the padding starts, right? So here we're inside the border, but we're inside where the padding starts, which is right there. And then the last one is content box. So we're going to say background origin content box. So there is a 30 pixel, there's a 30 pixel padding on this box. So that means that the background image is going to start where that content starts. If I inspect here again, just to show you what's going on. Here's the content, right? So I can't roll over both at once, but look right here. That's where the content is. That's where the padding starts. That's where the border starts. And that's outside the margin. So it basically says, where do you want to start the image from? Like here, here, or here. All right, the last one is clip. So clipping is kind of like cropping. Where do you want the, and this gets really into the fine grain a little bit, but, so we've got clipping down here. Right now, we've got these same thing on all four of these. Let's go under where it says clip border. And we're going to say background dash clip. And we're going to do border box. So what happens? It's the default, so we're already seeing that. So that means that the background image is cropped to the border. Now this border is semi-transparent, so we're seeing through it. This will make more sense when I do the next one. Let's do background clip padding box. And you see it's the same choices as the origin one. So now we said padding box. So now the image is cropped, right? Or we don't see it, right? So here we're seeing it all the way out to the outside edge of the border. Here we're seeing it only to the inside edge, outside edge of the padding. So this is cropped off, right? That's why this line looks thinner, because it's cropped. Cut off. We're not seeing it. And then the last one is content box. So let's put content box. And then now we only see the background image where the content is. So this is the content area. That's padding, that's border. So we don't see the background image except for the content area. If I inspect it and then I look at the content area, that's the content, there's the padding. We don't see that background there. I think that's it. That's probably way more than you wanted to know. But you can do a ton of cool things with background images. If you've never seen it, probably seen it, but because I like to show it to people. This is an old website called CSS Zen Garden, which is a experiment that was done long ago, but I think it's still going. These are all the same HTML exactly. The only thing that's changing in the styles, and then obviously the background images are changing. So you can do crazy stuff just by changing obviously CSS but background images too. Yeah, so that's CSS Zen Garden. Check that out. It's an oldie but a goodie. All right, I think that's it. Hopefully that helps with positioning your background images with CSS, and I will talk to you again later.